Let's solve some word problems involving percents. So when you have, the first thing you need to know is that when you have a decimal, so say you got 0.31, if you would like to convert that to a percentage, all you have to do is move the decimal 2 spaces to the right and then put a percentage sign right there. So this would become 31%. So let's look at the first problem. Problem number 1 on page 5 says, what number increased by 6% of itself equals 2650? So what number? That's the first clue. There is an unknown number. So let's put X down for the number. We're trying to figure out what this number is. And this number is increased by a 6% of itself. Well, that just means if you're increasing it, you're adding something to it. So you're adding 6% of itself. So 6, okay, remember this conversion up here. 6%, if you were to go the opposite way, you got to take this over. If you want to convert it to a decimal, you got to go 2 spaces to the left. So, decimal form. When we're dealing with equations, you always use decimal form, not percentage. Percentage is like a pretty way of putting it kind of at the end when you figure everything out. So it looks better to the eye, but not when you're dealing with problems. So when you're dealing with problems, use decimals. So 0.06, which equals 6%, 6% of itself, so of the same number of X. So let's just put an X right here because they're going to be multiplied against each other. That's how you get a percentage something, is you multiply the number by the percentage that you want to take from it. So 6% of X. This should equal 2650. So what can we do to solve this? Well, you have like terms here, so you can add those up. So this is going to be 1x plus 0.06x. 1.06x equals 2650. Now, divide both sides by 1.6. And x should equal 2650 divided by 1.06. 2,500. Alright, so now we know. So, what we learned here was if you increase 2,500 by 6% of itself, you should end up with 2,650. We pretty much were doing the reverse. We were reversing that increase. That's good to know how to do that. Later on, you'll have a lot of problems like that. So let's do number 2. The sum of two numbers is 38. If one number is 30% more than the other number, find the numbers. Okay. So we know we don't know two numbers. Okay. So one of them is just X, and the other one is 30% more than X. So can we just write maybe 1.3x? 1.3x is simply 30% more than X itself. And why is this? I'm going to show you real quick. Well, if you were to convert this from decimal form to percentage form, you would move this over twice. So 1 and then 2. So you have a 0 right here. So that would equal 130%. This, of course, is 100% of itself. So subtract 100 from it, and you'd get 30% left. So this is this number plus 30%. So it's that simple. 1.3x. There's the sum of them. Oh, that's not a sum sign. There, we'll use that sign right there. No plus. So this should equal, the sum of these two put together should equal 138. These are like terms, so let's combine them. So it's 2.3x equals 138, and divide by 2.3, and you get x equals, let's see, 60. So now you figured out the first number. The first number, x, is 60. The second number, which is 1.3x, equals, so really it's 1.3 times 60, because that's what x is. 1.3 times 60 equals 78. Figured out both numbers just by using variables. Most of the time when you come across a word problem that has two unknown numbers, you're not going to want to use an x and a y or different variables or letters, because then you can't combine them, and when you combine things it makes them so much easier. As you saw up here, once we combine these two, we just simply have one x and you just divide the coefficient by itself. So remember, if you can, always try to find or use just one letter to describe two different numbers. And you do that by either say if it was a number and then the other number is greater than 6, then it would be, x plus 6. In this case it was 30% more, so we just put a 1.3 out in front of it. But always try to use an x instead of different letters. That way they combine nicely and it's easier to figure out.